All right, it's 2 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. We're here for a public comment rulemaking hearing. This is Commission Case Number MX-2022-0012, and it concerns a proposal to amend 4 manufactured housing rules and to rescind a 5th rule. The purpose of this hearing is to take comments from the public, and staff is also here, and they'll be given a chance to comment about their rule. We'll let the members of the public speak first, with staff going last, so that they can have a chance to respond to anything, any matters that are brought up by members of the public. This hearing is also being webcast or conducted through WebEx for virtual. And I note that Commissioner Kolkmeyer is with us via the WebEx broadcast. Commissioner Kolkmeyer, you want to say anything? I'm not hearing anything from him. So we do have, as I indicated, several people here in the room. We don't have a set schedule as to who goes first. So anybody that wants to come forward and come on up to the podium, we'll hear what you have to say. First off, if you could tell us your name.
Thomas Hager. I'm with the Missouri Manufactured Housing Association.
Okay, what would you like to tell us?
Well, the information that we have received over the last year and a half has been a little bit scattered, and we just recently got some significant numbers. What kind of jumps out at me is we're seeing a trend in revenue from 2015 to 2020, where the revenue has actually increased well over 2015. In 2020, it was the highest that we'd had in 6 years. Then we get to expenses. The fund itself was at 41%. In 2020, it was at 3%. So it's starting to take a whole lot at $14,700 if there's at least fiscal responsibility, that that number should exceed zero and put it back in the black. One of the things that I haven't received, and I think is important, is what the numbers are for June 30th of 2021. If it's in excess of, then I guess we're going in the right direction. We realize that there is one inspector that is not there any longer, but I'm at somewhat of a disadvantage in that regard. I've been in this industry since 1974, and I've worked with the Public Service Commission through many of those years, through a lot of different chairmen, through a lot of different managers. And it never even came up through all that period of time that we needed to increase fees, especially to the extent that this calls for. It's hitting everyone. It's hitting and the poorest of the group would be the installers who we're losing, and we can't afford to lose any more than what we already are. The retailers, secondly, we've gone from 200 plus retailers in the state of Missouri down to 28. Now these are licensed, as I would call them, street retailers. These are not including, say, a manufactured housing community or someone that might be selling homes on the side and just has a license. These are 24/7 people that are running these businesses, and that's how much it shrunk. Number of units, we hit 8,000 not all that long ago. Now, we hope that we'll hit 1,200 to 1,500. That's the hope. And the way things are looking, especially through this year of the pandemic, most everybody's having a good year. As they have a good year, so does the Public Service Commission. They receive more money. So I feel somewhat that maybe this is a little premature. We have had inspectors as low as 1 to 2 for the entire state. Now we're talking about 4 and possibly 5 if they're given the opportunity to hire an additional person. But it used to be one person would show up, one person would come to my lot, one would inspect my homes. That's what I expected. And if there was a consumer complaint, they handled it. But now we're not dealing with that many consumer complaints. Actually, we're dealing with anything from a half a dozen to maybe 20 or 30 maximum. But they're not dealing with consumer complaints. They're dealing with inspections. So the more inspections they can do, the better it looks on paper. And that's again what we're dealing with. Not that they're not doing the best job that they can. I just feel that as being a businessman for 30 plus years, that it takes a lot of fiscal responsibility, especially in these times, to make sure that we spend our money the way that we should. And the consensus in our industry is that that's got a long way to go. And with that, that's really the extent of my comments.
Okay, I have some questions for you too, if you don't mind. You indicated you're with the association. What was the name of the association?
Missouri Manufactured Housing Association.
Okay. And are you also a business owner?
No, not today.
Okay. You were in the past?
Yes, for 30 years.
Okay.
And I was in the insurance business 7 years prior to that, which dealt in manufactured housing.
Okay. And, do you know what I'm just curious as to why is housing, manufactured housing sales down so much? Is there a trend that's going on or do we know?
Well, I think it was a combination of things. It was, financing. There were a lot of financing issues that were going on.
Banks wouldn't make loans, is that?
Banks, wouldn't make loans. HUD and so forth, was not dependable, as it was in other forms of housing. That was a lot of it. A lot of that's come back, at this point in time. But, it's possible one of the other folks that's here with me, would be able to address that a little bit, clearer than I am.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Deere. Whoever else wants to come up? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name's Jamie Smith. I am currently president of the board of directors for the Missouri Manufactured Housing Association, as well as general manager for Clayton Homes Development, so active dealer. Preface, like I said, I mean, we're here to work with the Public Service Commission. We view them as allies, friends, not adversaries. We see the value and the importance of them. The most glaring thing to me, I guess, would jump out for the proposal is in regards to the installers. Right now, like most trade industries, there's a shortage of installers right now, to even service the dealers that we have. So it is concerning possibly finding out more barriers to getting new licensed installers, and they're supposed to make it easier to get licensed installers. Because right now, I mean, there are a lot more actual manufactured home installers that are on the market that don't want to go through the licensing and stuff, so they just do the used homes, secondary home market stuff, where they don't have to go through it. So my fear is they're losing more installers for our industry that we're already facing a shortage of. So that's the most glaring thing. To dive into, Tom asked me to speak on, you mentioned the decline in the industry versus, prior decades and such. I've only been in the industry since 2008, so my experience goes no further than that. But one of the most glaring things is really zoning discrimination that we face. So whereas a builder can go in, site builder can go in, build really anywhere in type of city limits, we face a lot of struggles with that. And with federal preemption laws, we shouldn't be facing that, but still a lot of local authorities, regulations, make it very difficult to go inside the city limits. So we're restricted for the most part in our state to primarily our rural-based business. The homes are built to stronger standards than a lot of site-built homes, and many site-built homes, especially in the markets we're selling into. But due to zoning, it makes it very difficult to hit a lot of markets that we can serve effectively. So that's really anything I had to say.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question too. You mentioned about the installers, the concern about the shortage of installers.
Sure.
Do you have a reason why that might be happening?
I think it goes just to construction in general. I mean, there's just labor shortages, so installers, they face the same shortages of help and labor as anybody does. It's a hard business. I mean, being a manufacturer home installer is not an easy job, so it's not really one that you can really learn from anything else either. I mean, you have to be in the business, so a lot of the times people that grew up in it, their families are in it, so it's not necessarily an attractive position for somebody to jump into. So that's hard work, and then there are multiple installers out there, so they don't have to be licensed to set up used homes or move used homes. So there's plenty that don't want to go through the licensing aspect to install new homes. besides the regulatory side as well, we need licensed installers, so, it's, yeah, dwindling. So, I mean, you have people that may have been in it for decades and then retire, and there's no succession plan there for their company, so it's got a business and just not a lot of young people jump on that train really, so.
Now, when the manufacturing housing department charges the fee to installers, as a practical matter, who actually pays that fee? Is it the installers that pay it, or is it the dealer that pays it on behalf of the installers?
The installers do, yeah.
Okay, out of the fee that they charge.
Right, right. I mean, everything's passed on to us.
Well, sure.
In some way, but yeah, yeah, they're the ones responsible for actually paying it.
Okay. That's all the questions I had, and
Okay.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And who's next? Anybody else want to come forward and speak? Okay, and then we'll move over to staff.
Good afternoon. May it please the Commission. My name is Karen Bretz, and I represent the staff of the Commission's Manufactured Housing and Modular Units Program. Thank you today for hearing testimony regarding this rulemaking proposal. This proposal, as you've stated, increases 4 program fees and rescinds 1 fee for a license which hasn't been applied for a while. These fee increases are necessary to stabilize the program's financial footing and to ensure that it operates with adequate resources. Although program revenues exceeded expenses last year, that's not the trend. Going back as far as fiscal year 2015 through fiscal year 2020, the program operated at a deficit, and these amendments are overdue. And I apologize, we weren't able to get fiscal year 2021 information in last Friday, but we can provide an update to our rulemaking report that has the FY 2021 information in it. With me today is Justin Smith, who is the program's manager, and he's available for questions. From its beginning, the Commission regulated electricity, gas, and water and wastewater utilities. The Manufactured Housing and Modular Units program is relatively new, and while it has fewer cases before the Commission than the utilities do, its employees are still very busy. I will briefly summarize the program's work. First, what is a manufactured home and what's a modular unit? Our regulations have separate rules and fees for each. This rulemaking involves both manufactured housing and modular units, so it's helpful to know the difference. A manufactured home is a prefabricated structure of at least 320 square feet designed to be a dwelling unit. It can be placed on either a permanent or a not permanent foundation. Manufactured homes have a permanent chassis of axles and wheels, so they're always transportable. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, establishes design and safety standards for manufactured homes. The definition of a modular home is more expansive. A modular unit can be any size, and it's used for residential, commercial, educational, or industrial purposes. Like a manufactured home, a modular unit is prefabricated and is transportable, but it doesn't have axles and wheels. It's usually transported on a flatbed truck. HUD does not regulate modular units. Our program approves manufacturers' plans and oversees seals that are affixed to units showing that they were manufactured in accordance with those plans. The program usually performs between 500 and 700 on-site inspections of manufactured homes and modular units annually. These inspections are scattered throughout Missouri. Last year, fiscal year 2021, which was during COVID, of course, the program inspected 436. The program oversees and trains about 70 licensed installers. Last year, the program made the installers training available online through another rulemaking procedure. The program also licenses manufacturers and dealers. Last year, it inspected 21 dealer lots, which resulted in 3 dealer lot investigations. The program typically receives between 15 and 30 informal consumer complaints annually. During fiscal year 2021, the program handled 12. The program also consistently has a few formal complaints before the commission. And as Mr. Hager stated, there is a low number of complaints. And this low number of complaints is indicative that the system that we have in place is working. He suggested that perhaps we could make do with fewer inspectors, but the number of inspectors feeds into the number of inspections, which helps to keep complaints down, because when there's more inspections taking place, complaints can be, or issues can be raised and dealt with informally, rather than even coming to the informal or formal process. Currently, the program has 6 full-time equivalent FTE employees. Needless to say, this is a busy office. Speaking of the office, it has 3 full-time inspectors covering the entire state. The program basically divides the state into quadrants. So each inspector has one quadrant, and there's an open position now. Mr. Hager also suggested that it would be making do with 1 or 2 inspectors is just not feasible either. And there's no way physically that 1 or 2 inspectors can traverse the whole state to take care of hundreds of inspections. Mr. Smith, who I introduced to you, performs inspections in addition to being the manager. The program is one-time inspector and hopes to fill this position soon. Today, 1 new administrative person started work to join the other administrative person. Before getting into specifics of the proposed amendments, I will provide context of the program's financial situation, which basically drives its rulemaking. State law requires the Commission to establish fees sufficient to cover the program's administration costs. At the same time, the Commission shares authority for setting fees with 2 other jurisdictions that the Commission has no control over. Missouri law sets manufacturer and dealer registration fees. These are the program's largest source of funding. In fiscal year 2021, the program received about $170,000 from manufacturer and dealer fees. The program's second largest source of funding is Federal HUD State Administrative Agency, or SAA payments. The program partners with HUD to enforce federal standards for manufactured home design, construction, and installation. HUD distributes funds to SAAs, such as our commission, based on a formula. Missouri receives about $100,000 in HUD SAA funds annually. The Commission regulates fees which generate smaller funds, including the ones in this rulemaking. And I would like to note, too, that all of the program's funding comes from fees and SAA payments. It receives no funding from the Commission's annual assessment to the utilities. State law requires fees to be deposited in the Manufactured Housing Fund, which pays out program expenses. Fiscal year 2021 was the first year in some time that the program did not operate at a deficit. Going back at least as far back as fiscal year 2015 through fiscal year 2020, the program's expenditures exceeded revenues. The difference was made up by drawing from the fund. Accordingly, the fund's balances have steadily declined. The program's fiscal year runs from July 1 through June 30. On June 30, 2014, the fund's balance was almost $800,000. Its balance on June 30th, 2021 was $228,204. Without an increase in fees, it is likely that the fund will be further depleted and eventually drained. The program operates on a tight budget, keeping its annual expenses between $500,000 and $550,000. The program has been able to hold down expenses despite cost of living increases, position reclassifications, which increase salaries, and increases in gas costs, equipment costs, all the normal costs. However, revenues do not predictably meet expenses. Fee increases are long overdue. Based on my research, fees included in this rulemaking were most recently increased in the 2001 through 2005 timeframe. In this rulemaking, the program proposes to increase 4 fees and eliminate 1. The fee increases will be paid by the manufacturers and the manufactured home installers. None will be paid by dealers. Staff proposes raising the following fees. The fee at 20 CSR 4240-120.140 sub 1 requires manufactured home manufacturers to pay an inspection fee of $30 for each home delivered or sold to a Missouri dealer. The program proposes to increase this fee to $75. At 20 CSR 4240-123.030 sub 3B, modular unit manufacturers are required to pay a fee of $110 for each modular unit seal. This seal certifies that the unit was built in accordance with PSC-approved manufacturing programs. The program proposes to increase this fee to $220. 20 CSR 4240-123.040 sub 11A is the rule which requires modular unit manufacturers to pay an annual fee of $75 for renewal of each modular unit plan in production. The program proposes to increase this fee to $150. 20 CSR 4240-125.040 sub 1A requires manufactured home installers to pay an annual fee of $150 for an installer license. The program proposes to increase this fee to $225. One fee is proposed for rescission. This is at 20 CSR 4240-125.050 sub 1, which requires manufactured home installers to pay a fee of $150 for a limited use installer license. This limited use installer license allows a person to do the work of a licensed installer under a licensed installer's supervision. No one has applied for this license for a while. In my research of other states, I did not find any other state offering a similar license. Consistent with Governor Greitens' mandate that departments streamline regulations, the program believes this is ripe for elimination. Based on the number of these fees typically paid annually, staff estimates these increases will bring annual revenues, additional revenues, of $151,770. Promulgation of the proposed rule should ensure that the program's revenues match expenditures with an extra cushion to build back the manufactured housing fund balance. The fiscal impact will be shared as follows. As a group, the manufactured home manufacturers will pay approximately $54,720 annually. The modular unit manufacturers as a whole will pay approximately $91,650 annually, and the installers will pay approximately $5,400 annually. The program is sensitive to the fact that this is a large percentage increase in fees, but these increases are long overdue. A PSC internal audit of the Manufactured Home and Modular Units program was completed in 2019. Its primary recommendation is that, quote, an increase to some or all of the fees currently imposed by the program to finance its activities should be considered to eliminate the current annual fund imbalances, end quote. The fees proposed to be increased in this rulemaking have not been updated for at least 15 years. The program's effectiveness is dependent upon sufficient staffing and resources. Fees should be modernized to accurately reflect program costs. Thank you. And as I stated, Mr. Smith is here too for questions.
I have some questions, and if you can answer them, Ms. Bretz, that's fine. If we need to bring Mr. Smith up to the podium, we can do that too. It was mentioned that if manufactured home sales were to pick up, this increase might not be necessary. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Due respect, I disagree with that. There'd be some difference in, but nothing monumental to represent the imbalance that we've been showing for the last 7 years plus.
Okay. If you could identify yourself for the court reporter.
Justin Smith.
And you're the director of the manufactured housing?
Yeah, regulatory compliance manager for manufactured housing and modular units program.
Okay.
And I would also add, Judge, too, that the program is short one inspector. The inspector for Southwest Missouri is an unfunded position, basically. And so the program hopes in the near future to be able to have an inspector for that area. And so that will alleviate some of the burden off the other inspectors. who have to travel down there to make up for that.
And it's my understanding that the inspectors are based at various locations around the state and not necessarily here in Jefferson City.
Correct.
Okay. Ms. Brett, you mentioned that you were concerned that the fund would eventually be drained. Can you just say what would happen if the fund were to be drained?
I guess I can't really predict what would happen. There would be no more, you mean, is a legal matter?
Both as legal and practical.
I guess I don't know. Of course, there would be no funds then to make up any imbalances between the revenues and expenses. I guess I can't predict any further than that.
Okay. Where does the money come from that's in the fund now? Is it just excesses from years past? Is that what goes into the fund?
I apologize. I'm not totally up to speed with that, but I understand that this money was set aside kind of to get things started, to jumpstart the program and to provide seed money for the program. And that the idea was eventually that the expenses would meet revenues. And as I stated, it hasn't happened that way for quite a while. So the fund has been drawn down.
So it's kind of a rainy day fund, is that? I don't know if that's the term to use for it or not.
It's built up over the years, and as I understand it, I've only been here 7 years, but the program used to have other functions involved with the pre-owned home market. And there was a time when they were inspecting and regulating the recreational vehicle market as well. RVs were a part of this unit or program, which no longer are sources of revenue for the program. It's dwindled down and focused on new manufactured homes in the state and modular units.
Okay. The rule that's being rescinded is about limited use installer license. You indicated that it's seldom been used. And there was also a statement from Mr. Smith, Mr. Jamie Smith, I believe, indicating that there's a shortage of installers. Would this limited use installer license be helpful in dealing with that shortage?
I don't believe so. It's been in our rules for a very long time. No one seems to use it. It's set up the same as a primary installer license. So everyone that's going through the process gets their primary license. No one goes for that option, and the way the rule's set up, it's the same cost with less functionality.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from staff?
Nothing, thank you.
I'll bring it back to the industry. Is anything that staff said that you want to respond to?
Well, I think
Well, you need to come up to the microphone, otherwise they can't hear you outside the room.
Well, there's a few things. When this program, just to clarify, started in 1976, it was a result of the Congress of the United States putting into effect a code for mobile homes at that time. And so it moved on from there. We as the industry wrote checks personally to support the process of, because no one in the Public Service Commission had ever dealt with this. It was mainly, as you know, utilities and so forth. But that's what occurred. At the rate, I heard a number for year-end 2021. Was that 228?
Which number?
The fund balance.
Oh. The fund balance is $228,204 as of June 30, 21.
Okay, so as of June 30th, In 2020, it was 14,700. So to me, if I'm looking at it, I'm seeing it gone in the black at this point in time. And a lot of that is because of the programs that we have, because of the present inspections that we have, and so forth. At the rate, as an example, of even the $14,700, and we had an ending balance of $206,867, it would take 14 years to become fully depleted. I don't believe in 14 years that this thing is going to be in the red. It's not moving in that direction. We have a tremendous number as far as quality of retailers today. We went from 200 when I had my store to roughly 28 to 30 now, and that number is just because it's required more as people got older. I got older and decided that this wasn't something that I wanted to keep doing. But it's interesting to hear those numbers. Just to clarify, and whether it's this important in this session or not, but modular homes are not units that are all brought in on flatbeds. Modular homes are built to a standard, and that's the difference between the two. You have a building code that is residential code that applies to them. We don't deal in any kind of commercial office buildings. We don't deal in any kind of apartments or whatever. We deal strictly in the modular units. They come in on tires and wheels by the majority from the factory. And that's how, and they're indistinguishable really from manufactured housing today. So just a point of clarification. But that's good news. I mean, to see that the fund has actually grown and so forth over the last year is good, and I would expect it to be higher than that this coming year. So with that, I think is a good reason that this is possibly delayed for at least a couple of years to see where it goes. And unless they pay an inspector $100,000 a year, that sounds to me like it's going to be more than be able to cover any expense in that regard. One thing we met the other day with Justin and his boss, and we talked about retirees and so forth and the effect on the fund. I don't know that does or doesn't. I understood from our meeting that it did. And then I looked at some other things and it said it did not, that it was something that went through the Public Service Commission itself. So that's something there that if it does, that should have relieved a lot of expense and so forth on this as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else from the industry? Staff, I'll let you have the last word.
Just a couple of points. Mr. Hagar talked about the amount, how the fund is operating. I would just like to stress that the office has been operating on a bare bones shoestring for the last number of years. The office just hired one administrative person who started today. They're hoping to hire another inspector to fill a position that is unfilled so far. So if from Mr. Hagar's perspective, if the program does continue to operate bare bones and not meet its statutory duties of expenses and revenues being the same, we can keep on kicking us down the road. But in order to fulfill its mission, to provide a service to the people who buy manufactured homes and modular units, it's important for this fee increase to take place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else anyone wants to add at this point? See anybody raising their hands, so at this point we will adjourn. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.